Hey folks, welcome to the Bass Shed Podcast. My name is Ryan Roberts. All right, so today on the Bass Shed Podcast, I know the title of my podcast. It's the Bass Shed Podcast. Get it together, Ryan. Today is Valentina Ciardelli. Stick around to the end of the episode, and you're gonna listen to Valentina coach me on how to say your last name, and we'll all just realize just exactly how white I am and kind of how much I butcher her name. Stick around for that. I think I got it right. I think I just got it right, although completely that was the gringo translation. She's a bassist and composer living in London. And she had reached out to me, and we were talking back and forth, I don't know, maybe about a week and a half. And she said some things in an email that were really, really interesting to me about not only equal rights within society, because of, all the things, religion, race, gender, all that, but also within, like, a musical hierarchy. And she's really passionate about moving the bass forward into this area, this world of equality, not only with social issues but also musical issues. And we spend a lot of time talking about that. We talk about her early influences. We talk about her debut recording titled Music from the Sphinx. She's going to talk about the program that's on that and how that translates to her personal narrative and why those pieces are on there. She's very passionate about Frank Zappa and the music of Frank Zappa. I know she's very passionate about the music of Frank Zappa. And I know he's been an inspiration to her along the way. To say she's passionate about Frank Zappa sounds kind of weird, though, right? I don't know. Maybe it's okay. So there's that. We're gonna cover all that. So stick around. I'm not gonna bore you with any other things. You can check out thebassshed.com, subscribe to the newsletter, and I'll let you know what's happening with all the transcriptions and stuff that way. And here's my talk with Valentina.
I'm here.
All right. Good. Glad to have you. You wrote, there's a couple things I really want to talk to you about. There's something you wrote in the email, and I'm going to ask your permission if I can just read the email.
Yeah, of course.
And reference what? Okay. So you wrote, in a world where we're carefully achieving equality and rights for all minorities, gender, sexual orientation, ethnicity, and religion, in the music world, this is not fully happening yet. This argument is very, very delicate and important, and it really will deserve more space in order to awake people sensibly. That I love that, and I want to know where you're coming from within that, and I want to hear your thoughts on that, and I kind of want to dive into that.
Okay, so basically, it's just like a journey that I'm just discovering, and I'm just into every day of my life, because I can observe the music environment, especially the classical one, that it's super not fair in terms of equality, because
Okay.
you have a series A instrument like violin, piano, cello, and series B instrument like double bass, bassoon,
Yeah.
and actually we don't deserve the same space. Actually, in reality, everyone say, oh, double bass is a fantastic instrument, oh, bassoon is a fantastic instrument, but then when you go in reality to propose yourself as soloist or as chamber musician, most of the time people doesn't really want to invest on you because they are afraid about you will not attract enough people will think, oh, what is this odd repertoire or this odd instrument that nobody knows, and etc. etc. So it's like a bit what happened and still happening, actually, because we are talking a lot, but still we have issue with if you are sexual orientation or gender or ethnicity and everything, no. But
Now,
this
see,
is
that's an interesting it's an interesting kind of leap to make, and I want to kind of, for my own personal understanding, So
Mm-hmm.
I understand like people not knowing much about the double bass, and like, I'm more often than not, every time I'm on a gig, someone's gonna say that's a cello, like
Exactly,
without a
exactly.
doubt, hands down. Like no one even knows what I do for a living. And
Yeah.
then like the people that might have an inclination that it's not a cello,
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, it's a double bass. That's a double bass, right? Like they have to ask me for
Yeah, yeah,
validation
cover. Yeah,
that
exactly.
they even know what the instrument is. So I'm aware that there's a disconnect between just what folks know about the instrument. But then when it gets into really personal and cultural aspects of religion and sexual orientation, now that's personal. Those are personal discriminations, I guess would be
Yeah,
a word.
yeah,
And not so much musical or just the lack of musical knowledge. So let's actually talk about those separately, because although
yeah.
someone's life will affect their music, and it's all just their personal journey, whatever their sexual orientation, ethnicity, religion is, that will all
Mm-hmm.
influence their music. But let's keep it where we were talking about it, because I want to talk about just the nature um, of the musical aspect. But then I definitely want
Yeah,
to dive into all the cultural things, because that's
yeah.
like, I mean, there's a part of me that I can just chalk people not thinking it's a cello. Like, all right, you're an idiot. Like I can just chalk it up to like, come on, like I wouldn't look at a car and say it's a truck. It's something
Exactly,
completely different.
exactly,
And just
exactly.
because you don't know the difference, like I don't take that personally. Like you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Um, I apologize to everybody out there. I might have just called it an idiot, but you're kind of an idiot. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So let's talk about that now. What you're doing, because actually the next phrase in the email
Uh-huh.
um, is also equally as captivating. I'm convinced that and fully aware that the 21st century is a renaissance for the double bass. Let me scroll down in the email.
Mm-hmm.
Is a renaissance for the double bass time as much as classical and romantic era were for the piano and cello. I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
forward. I'm looking for philanthropic, energetic, and adventurous people who will join me to go forward in my artistic and development journey. And then you have a quote
Mm-hmm.
from Zappa here, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. And I know you're very invested into the music of Frank Zappa. There is no progress without deviation from the norm. Completely
Yes.
agree. So this is kind of a musical. You set your musical sights on this, and I'm sure even deeper than musical, because you are making connections to personal, cultural uh, aspects of identity.
Mm-hmm.
But so within the music world,
Mm-hmm.
um, let's talk about that. Like I'm not a classical guy. I'm not a classical guy, and like I've had one other classical player on the podcast, and I just kind of like like I didn't even know what to talk to him about, even though he's a friend of mine and I had studied with him. Um,
Okay.
but like I'm not super hip to the whole classical world thing. Um, but how do you see that changing for the double bass in the classical world?
Yeah, actually, the problem is not really uh consider ourselves bass player or like classify us through an instrument. Do you know what I mean? It's like we choose an instrument to express ourselves, and in
Hmm.
this case I choose bass. I was a piano player before, and then I discovered bass, and I thought, oh, this instrument, it's even better for me. And then I
What
went.
was that? What was that? How did that discovery take place? Was it a recording you heard? Did you hear a live performance? Um,
No, it was completely random in Conservatoire. I just hear
okay.
the sound of this thing, yeah, because I
Yeah.
was one of those that didn't know anything about the bass.
Sure.
And I was
Sure.
like, I discovered the sound. I was like, whoa, this is amazing. What is this? It's double
Yeah.
bass. It's playing solo. Wow. And then I
Yeah.
decided to get into it. And the thing is, like, I choose that to express myself because I really felt more natural on the instrument and more close on my, I don't know, way of being and expressing myself. But and the wrong problem, and I think the not wrong but huge problem, is that people judge you through the instrument you play still. Most of the time, bass players are not seen as fully artist or musician. They're just bass players. You know, when like a violin player, solo violin player is a full soloist, musician, and etc. Bass players are still classified as the freaks. Sometimes they're playing solo and that's it. And that's special in the classical world because in jazz, actually, bass players start to have their own identity. And they have, I mean, also a leading position. Like if you think about Charles Mingus or, you know, Scott Navarro
like
or Eddie Gomez, you know.
Yeah. Well, and like within the nature of jazz, you know, like because you referenced Mingus, like those dudes can have their own groups.
Exactly, they're leading groups.
Like
they're
they're leading groups. That I've never personally known of an orchestra that was led by a bass player.
Actually, it happened in the past.
Really?
And I mean, I
know of the composers, right? I know of the composers that would, yeah. Fair.
Yeah, or nowadays there is like one of my actual favorite musician, not only bass player, that is Edgar Meyer. He's just doing he's doing a lot of, and actually before Gary Carr, no, they try really to be on the spot, you know, but it's still few, and still the society is not fully understand that we need change, man. We are going into that. A lot of young bass player generation are amazing in playing and everything, but we just are stuck in the past and we don't have enough space to express, no? And a lot of us are just going into orchestra just because, we really like orchestra, and that's a matter of fact, but we don't have any other really concrete choice to survive with chamber music or solo, you know, as maybe some other instrument can. It's a struggle for everyone, but for bass player, I think another instrument, it's more difficult to achieve a kind of position like as an established chamber musician or solo, just because of that, because we don't have the space as the other instruments. So that's why I'm talking about equity, equality in that term. It's like to saying to a woman, "Oh, you're really good to be a woman." No, it's like the same, like, "Oh, you're really good to be a bass player." It sounds really good to be a bass.
Like you have to just throw that little thing in there to like just kind of crap on it all. Like, oh yeah, you're good for a bass player. Like, what?
Yeah,
like,
you know what I mean.
Musicianship is good musicianship.
Yeah, it's like, or we only need the notes and that's it. It's enough, you know, because it's a bass. So the important thing is just to hear the notes. And this is really frustrating because I think it's not coming from the instrument. It's just like about the personality and the quality of the player and the musician. It's him or herself, you know. And we are not valued yet for this.
I don't think. I really don't think that most people. Now I'm assuming it's primarily bass players that would be listening to this conversation, but I don't know. I think most people don't really know what it means to be a great bass player. Like, if you're listening to like an electric guitar player, you know, or a violin player, and it's out front and it's the lead voice within the group, you know, or within jazz, maybe it's a horn, a saxophone, or a trumpet or something, you know, and they're just ripping, right? They're just going for it and they're crushing it. Cool. Well, that's out front. That's on top of the music. That's the lead voice. Everybody's going to be like, wow, cool. No one knows that, like, maybe the notes the bass player played in his walking line just steered that saxophone player in a different direction.
Yeah.
And like they don't know that like all the nuance that goes into, I mean, that's my world is the jazz thing, so that's why I'm using that as an analogy. that there's all this really a lot of behind the scenes work that facilitates all that.
Yeah.
And like, and not only as soloist and when the bass is the lead voice, because that's another thing people don't know. Maybe it's because of the register of the instrument. People just can't kind of connect with what's going on there, unless you're playing a bunch of fast stuff or something, and then people are just like, wow, that seems difficult, so I guess I should clap. But I don't really think people know what it means, and I don't, without taking them into like some kind of bass appreciation class or something, they won't ever really get it. So for me, I know I try to just like, well, that's what it is. I know what my job is, and that's and the cats I'm playing with, they know what my job is. So cool, and we'll just keep it right there. Ultimately, if the band sounds better because I did a good job, then great.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But I do think there's an overall public awareness that is lacking in just with the nature of the bass as a whole.
Yeah, totally. Because I think it's a different process. It's like a bit like when you play bass line or you playing an orchestra, this is your job, no? To just like create the ground of the music, no? And it's like fundamental. Without the bass, a good bass player or a good bass section, it's making I think the 50% of the sound of an orchestra or a band. If you don't have a good bass player, it's just forget it. You can have like Miles Davis on the trumpet, it's not working.
Right.
But and I think but the aspect I'm really keen in this aspect that I'm trying to discover is like about the fact that if you want to discover something more on the register of the instrument, if you want to dare more, even in terms of repertoire, and put yourself on the spot, and it's not just for an ego thing at all, it's because you feel the instrument can give you different shades of the music you feel and the music you like.
Sure.
You always squashed a bit, even primarily from the bass player community in the classical environment. A lot of people in the orchestra, they tell to you, why are you doing that? Is it
really?
Necessarily? Yeah. And they said, oh, if I didn't get it, why you should get it? It's impossible with the bass. Forget it. Just change the instrument. A lot of people tell these things. And they just tell you, you should prepare for audition. You should prepare for getting a job in orchestra. That is completely understandable. But the thing is, like, if you don't dare when you're young, if you don't search, you don't go forward. But it's not just for you, it's for all the community. If all the musicians of the past didn't dare or didn't just try to do something different, we might have not find all this repertoire we know today, you know what I mean? And it's not like a question to pretend to be all genius. We can do the same thing in our word, in everyday life, in a musician perspective. And I think, especially in days like in a century like this one, where people are a bit squashed about like social depression and a lot of bad things happening in the last few decades, honestly.
Yes.
And we really should go forward and think and ask ourselves what we are and what we can do. And as a bass player, I really feel the necessity to do that, because it's something that it's true, no? And if you shut your mouth and you just do what other people telling you to do, you're not going forward, neither as a person, I think.
I think I love this. I love that you're kind of bearing the cross, so to speak, to really take this on and make this such a part of your musical journey. I think that's great. I also think that there's one. I had a follow-up question, which is like, because of this kind of closed-minded nature within the orchestra, is that conditioning to the mind that maybe the music has on them of like this music's from the past, where we have to connect with the past and these kind of old ideas to play this music, and they've been around this music and this kind of hierarchy for so long within studying that music, that everybody just kind of adopts this mentality of like, well, this is what you do, that's it, we're in the past, our job is just to play this and follow the conductor and sound good as a section, and no one's really looking for an artistic, because everything you're talking about are artist ideals.
I think
releasing daring art into the world and how it relates to your instruments and what that's going to be. Whereas I think there's a lot of people in the world that just don't go there. They don't go there for themselves. And not because maybe they're closed-minded, but they just don't have that imagination.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is, like, there is nothing wrong to like to play in orchestra. And actually, I just hope that orchestras still exist in 200, 300, 400 years. Orchestra is amazing. Yeah. But it's the question, it's like, how many people really enjoy to be there? That's the thing. And this is what drains some people.
Do you mean from a patron standpoint or from a performer standpoint?
Both. I mean, both.
Okay.
The thing is, like, as a performer, I have the feeling some people, especially in my generation, I speak with a lot of people from my generation. Oh, I like so much chamber music, but you cannot survive, so you have just to hand up to find a job in orchestra. And they say it with the most sad voice ever.
Right,
even if they say,
tone.
Even if they say, they said, but it's a stable job. But a stable job is also a job in the office. You know what I mean?
I use that analogy a lot. Like, I can go work anywhere for a stable
exactly.
job.
And the thing is, like, most of the people, that's why a lot of orchestras got also depressed kind of, I don't know, feeling. No, the orchestra player are a bit like kind of sad when they speak about this thing, because it's their second choice that they actually took because it was more safe in a human way, and they prefer not to risk. And this is actually the issue why I think in the society, because I mean, music, it's only a reflection of a big portrait. Art always reflects what's going on in the society, what's going on with human beings. And I think that's why nowadays people doesn't dare that much anymore. We want to be all safe. We want to be all sure on what's going on. We want to double check, triple check things. But life doesn't really work like that, I think. Maybe I'm too young, and I'll speak differently in 30 years probably.
No, I don't. I don't think it works. I think the world, the world keeps turning, and like you just gotta hang on, and you got to go for it. Like, whatever it is, you're not to quote Eminem, but you only get one shot at everything. Like, you just got to go.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to value diversity, I think, but not only in the social aspect, in the musical aspect. It's so fundamental because we are one of the spectrum of the society. We should apply the same attention, even in the quality between instruments. Because if you only give to people violin recital, piano recital, cello recital, whatever, and sometimes bass, and with a limited amount of repertoire, or just an underground thing, because bass word is an underground thing. We do our festival for ourselves, and nobody is really joining because they don't know what is going on. We do fabulous stuff, but nobody knows about that.
Sure.
It will always be like that. We will never have our place. We will never deserve the actual place, because the people doesn't know we really exist or what we're doing. Right. And actually, even if you see in the society, because I'm trying to apply the same rules about what happened with women liberation or whatever, the women just start to say, we don't want to live like that anymore. We deserve a better place. Or actually, if there are women that want to still live like that, it's fine. But if some women want to do something else, they have to to have the possibility to do things, and this is the same in the musical environment. If there are bass players, they want still to do stuff, or they are not interested to be in the spot, and they don't really care, like, oh, I don't care, I'm okay with that, it's fine. But it's just a lift for everyone if we find our space around. And doesn't mean everyone has to do the same, but at least we grow the consciousness of the people,
Sure.
And that's basically the thing. It's easy to say, but a mess to
Yeah,
do,
I mean,
but
because then you're talking about just a total musical and cultural revamping of the whole thing. And I think that there will always be people, both culturally and musically, that will always subscribe to the old guard of thinking because of whatever. Maybe they grew up in a house where the idea of like really strong fundamentalism existed, and so like that's just how their brain works, and that's where they find security, and that's just who they are as a person. And that's cool. Like there's you get to a point with that type of thinking that is completely fine, because to be what the word would be, I don't know, maybe progressive, daring, adventurous in how you're going to live your personal and musical life, and how that relates with like pushing things forward, which I completely support and I think is amazing. There's always going to be people that won't get it, and there is room for everybody, and there's room for people that don't get it. And I can't be, I think I would be closed-minded if I said, well, like, no, you have to be this, you have to be adventurous, you have to be daring, because then that's just equally as closed-minded. So there is room for everybody, and that those people doing the orchestra jobs or just don't have no interest in pushing an instrument forward, or even really pushing themselves forward, because I think that's where it comes from. If someone has that adventurous spirit to move music forward, that means they've already most likely kind of addressed that within themselves, of they want to push themselves forward. So now that is going to be, it's going to kind of translate through their music, because they've already addressed it personally. And I don't think a lot of people, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. It's funny because I'm sure, like you, most of the people I know and interact with are artists and musicians. And so that there is a lot of that. I find a lot of my friends and peers and people I work with a lot, they're into that. They're pushing themselves forward. They want to see what else they can do, how, they want to check that out. They want very investigative thinkers. At least the ones I'm close with are. And that's cool. And I kind of got off on a tangent and lost where I was going. But I don't know if everybody's like that, and that's fine, as long as whatever their fundamentalism isn't squashing somebody else.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be so cavalier about about moving things forward that I would alienate those that don't subscribe to that personally. That's fine. Like, you're cool where you are. Just like don't oppress this, and then I'll go do this and move this forward. But I'm not necessarily going to oppress you.
No.
And that is always part of the way I guess the world turns, from what I know of it. I haven't been here all that long, but what I figured out about the world is there's some that are always, what else can we do? How can we, raise the consciousness and
at least
to progress, and other people just I'm good right here.
Exactly. That's the thing, is like it doesn't mean everyone has to join, but it's just like to let people and that aware that something is going on, then people are totally free to choose, and also have more knowledgement about things they didn't know about. Right. So that's because that's why the process is so important. Not just because you have to convert people or just convince people, but you let them know something else, So and that's why we just go to school, probably, or we just learn things, just because the more you know, the the more you're free to choose ish.
Sure. And
Yeah.
there's, I mean, there's I think not a lot of people necessarily. I mean, I don't know actually, but it seems like that those ideas and ideals of pushing boundaries and things, they seem to be a struggle at times to really, take the plunge and do something new. It seems like you're going into uncharted water. So then anytime I've done that in my life, I have to think back and like, well, man, why is this so difficult? Well, it does. It makes you feel like you're the only one out there doing it.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. And so then I automatically assume, well, then like everybody else wants to play it safe. And maybe that's a poor assumption on my part. But, the world's a rough place to live sometimes. And, everybody wants to just want to keep what they got and just don't rock the boat and let me just get through today. And that's cool. Like, I get it, but I personally wouldn't want to leave a musical legacy of that or a social legacy of that. I would like to, make some kind of stamp on the world in some way that's benefited and furthered things and connected people.
Totally. Yeah. Actually, this is the goal.
Yeah.
It's It's not. It's just like a way of connection. That's why it's just a language, no? A way of express.
Sure.
That's why it should be kind of free for anyone, no? If you feel you would like to express you in a way instead of another, you should really have at least the possibility to do that. That's right. the thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. I agree. Now this seems like a great point in the conversation to ask you about your record.
Okay.
So now it's very clear where you're coming from.
Yeah.
About in this record. Talk through the record. What's the program? What's the layout of the record? Like what are the pieces on the record?
So I choose quite a variety of repertoire in the record. I just basically start it's just like a small journey in my kind of main repertoire research.
Okay.
That actually is target to value the proud to be bass player and play the bass and not like to play the bass like a cello or something like that, no? Because like one of the point that sometimes also it's just misunderstood by people is like what you said before. Is this a cello? It's just because, especially in the classical world, sometimes we pick up a lot of cello repertoire that it's great. I'm playing also cello repertoire sometimes, but we should not really play only cello repertoire if we would like to put the bass in a spot position, and not the like unlucky brother of a cello, or unlucky,
right.
Sibling of a cello. That he tried so hard to be a cello, but
but always just kind of sitting back seats and getting the hand me down.
And this is where
here's the Bach cello suite. Like, I'm done with it. You can have it.
Yeah, like, it sounds like a cello almost. Great. No, it's not really. So I really try to follow a bit more the steps of bass players, that they actually value the bass as an instrument. Like, first of all, Bottesini, Dragonetti, this composer and player, that they really know what they were doing on the instrument, despite the fact you can like the style or not, but they really try to value the technical also ability of the instrument. And also like
I think those ideas, like that thing what you just said, like there's a high technical proficiency that's necessary to work on those pieces. But they still honored the nature of the instrument. And I think even within the jazz world, to go back to Mingus or Scott LaFaro or on electric, Giacomo and everybody that came after Giacomo.
Yeah.
No, not everybody that came after Giacomo. Not everybody that came after Giacomo. Some people just took the solo thing from Giacomo and that was it. But like the greats, when they would do it, they never lost the spirit of the instrument.
Yeah.
Like they still maintain that while pushing it forward. And for me, that's what I love about all those people, is like
Yeah.
they still know that they're not making it something it's not. Which, like, the bass isn't just a solo instrument. Like, so
No.
much of the beauty of this instrument is in this kind of undertow and pulse you can create,
Oh
that is
yeah.
necessary for the music. And that's everything. I mean, that's the, I mean, I don't need to tell you, obviously, but I'm just going off on a rant here.
Yeah, no, but you have a lot of choices with the bass. You can choose whatever you want
Absolutely.
if you know how to do that. It's
Right.
really good.
So then, so on your record, now, and I'm getting sidetracked with all these questions in my head. So we'll come back to the record in a second. Do you think there's not enough young, modern repertoire for solo bass so that everybody has to go back to Bottesini and Dragonetti? Or do you think that stuff is so popular that it's almost like a proving ground? Like, yeah, I can play this. So that kind of validates my solo chops.
Yeah. So it's a mix of fact, I think. So I don't have the absolute truth. It's just my part of view. I think it's a combination of things. First of all, the thing of this is the demonstrate how fast and how good you can be on the bass. So of course, if you pick up showing off established piece like Bottesini, is like a bit Paganini, you can show off a lot, no? And not only in terms of musical attitude, but just technique. And they're required also in competition and stuff. So Bottesini is the main thing, And then, it's because the limited repertoire, classical repertoire. As classical bass player, still a lot of people doesn't understand we can go forward in the 21st century and 20th century. We are still stuck in the romantic beginning of 20th century-ish or classical era. As other instruments, as violins or stuff in competition, they start to open a bit on contemporary music, but really, really in a small context yet compared to all the music that we could and we are actually producing, And I think this is partially coming from the academic environment, that you practice the piece that your teachers start to tell you to practice, and then you stuck on them instead of, okay, I learned them, I know the technique now, I'm conscious about what's happened before, now I really need to develop what I am or what I'm doing or what I want to explore. There is a big stock in this thing, and especially in bass world, just because our repertoire, even in the classical world, it was super limited. So we're more stuck in this circle than other instrument probably. And I think there is a lot of repertoire, new good repertoire coming on in terms of classical, contemporary music. I really hate to put music in boxes, because it makes no sense. It's just like everything. It's chamber music. Everything is contemporary. You know what I mean? Even for me, the Coltrane trio or stuff, it's chamber music, but whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just the same spirit as, I don't know, Bach trios. They were jamming, they were reaching. Of course, he was composing counterpoint and stuff, but they were more likely jamming as jazz player than what we are doing today with their music. Do you know what I mean? It was more, I don't know, a kind of concrete approach with the music, like jazz player. And actually the thing is, like, because of the issue I explained before, people are not daring to, but I have to practice for audition to get a job. We cannot really practice new repertoire because we don't have time. We have to focus on orchestra excerpts, the same two concerto they ask to the audition, and blah blah blah. So people end up to don't play chamber music and don't really explore new music. And actually it's a lack of musical knowledgement that it's going on in there, no, because you stay stuck in just one thing and focus in one thing. And as you said before, maybe a lot of people want to stay stuck in this, but on the other hand, a lot of other people would like to don't stay stuck in this, but they don't have the choice yet to do that.
And I think that maybe they don't have the
because
commitment to the idea to be there.
Yeah.
They'll ride someone's. This is the terrible phrase, but they'll ride someone's coattails. Who's going to be a trailblazer? But they're not going to blaze the trail themselves. Like they're not going to go start it and be the initiator. But once they see a movement happening, they'll be like, okay, yeah, I'll be a part of that movement. I'll be a part of the pack that's going that way. But I'm not going to be the one that's going to spearhead that.
On the pole position, because it's difficult. Take the. It's a bit. It's just a matter of daring a lot and expose yourself a lot. And of course, when you expose yourself, you get good things, but there's a lot of bad things. So you have to prepare to protect yourself a lot. And
I want to ask you. It was something you just mentioned about after being in the practice room and practicing a piece for a while, and then it's time to go kind of figure out what you want to do. You said something similar to that, and the kind of the phrase that went through my mind was like this musical age of accountability, which is like, okay, cool. Like I'm comfortable on the instrument. I'm comfortable with the history of repertoire and all that stuff. Now it's time for me to go speak my voice. That's how I think about it. You get your chops together. With integrity, and you learn from the right places, and your playing is in context. There's so much that can be said about that too, because it's hard to qualify what context is within art. That came out not like I meant it, but there's no right or wrong is what I'm saying within art. So like, if someone who just goes out and does something completely avant-garde, well, that's fine, even though there's no maybe technical history. Maybe that guy, whoever's, playing the avant-garde thing, doesn't know about a Puccini piece. That's fine. He's still releasing art in the world. That's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think to go back to the nature of what you were saying, like getting to this kind of point within your musical journey and having an understanding, not only on the instrument, repertoire, history, blah, 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 and then just really choosing. I mean, that's a deliberate choice. I mean, I think it was for me. I don't know if it was for you to be like, okay, cool. Now it's time for me to like really. I got burnt out. I got burnt out on just doing the same thing. So it's when I started writing for a quartet I had years ago. It's like, all right, now it's time for me to kind of go put all this together and synthesize it and make it come out like Ryan. It was a very conscious decision. I don't know if was that a conscious decision for you, or is it kind of just something that like your musical journey and path just kind of ended up unfolding into?
It's strange because I think I grew up with Frank Zappa's music and ideas a lot. Okay. I start to listen his music since I was 11, just completely random. And
did you grow up in a musically progressive environment? I mean, it sounds like you did. If Zappa was around a lot.
Actually, not a lot, not at all. I just dragged my parents into Frank Zappa's music. They knew Frank Zappa, but they were not that mad as I was. My mom is just she played the piano, she played organ, and she was a lot into classical music and actually rock, but like Led Zeppelin and Deep Purple, these kind of things. Okay. My dad is just not really into classical, but more pop-ish, like Beatles, stuff like that. My grandma,
same kind of time period, like just rock bands from the 60s. Yeah,
exactly. And my grandma, she was a super huge fan of opera, and I started to love opera through my grandma. She was not a musician, but she was listening Puccini, Verdi, all this. She knew all the aria by memory, everything. She was
Oh,
amazing.
wow.
And then I discovered Zappa when I was 11, and I started to listen his music, and then I started to learn a bit of English, also to learn what he was saying in the text, and I discovered they were super, super rude texts, and I really liked it, by the way. But full of like bad words and everything,
Yeah.
and I really enjoyed them. And yeah, and actually the way he treat arguments and everything, I found it was like, wow, like this dark humor, sarcastic humor
Sure.
he has. And I really
Yeah.
grew up like that in my whole teenage time. I was just interested in Frank Zappa interview and everything. So I learned a lot about not be in the box from his interview, even in a way, in a musical way. He said we don't have to be afraid to say what we like and what we don't like, and also what he was really keen in saying, it was like we have to be responsible to understand who we are and what we are doing, not just because of our
Yeah.
ego to be remembered. He was saying, I don't care if people will not remember me after that. I don't care. I just want to be fair with myself, no? And
Sure.
this is the most important thing. And I think I grew up with this kind of ideals. Maybe sometimes they're extreme, but actually they actually helped me a lot in strong decision that I had to make in my life, like changing instrument from a day to
Mm-hmm.
another. It was one of the most extreme decision I ever took in my life, but it's actually something I will never regret, because I think it was the best decision I could take in my life, to just decide to play the bass.
Sure.
Just for myself, not because I want to be the best bass player in the world, or because this is all not
Yeah, and I don't even know
real
what
thing,
that means, like there's no
It's like, what does it mean to be the best bass player? A lot of
right.
people say that we're all different, and we're like facing different aspect of the instrument. Even if you play
Right.
the same instrument to another people, you cannot be better than another person. You're just different, and this is what
Sure.
it's fascinating me the most, because and this is what I was telling about the process to choose things and to like push the border and also understand yourself. It's just like, because we are different, you have to discover what you really enjoy to do your job good enough, because if you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's just not fair. There are so many other jobs you can do and not enjoying in them, but I think
Sure.
music, it's a bit peculiar. You're not choosing, you don't pick up an instrument just because you have to. If you choose an instrument, or you pick up a job because you have to, is there when issue are coming, I think, especially in arts, because you can feel you're not enjoying the thing. You're just all showing off. And I'm not speaking about technical stuff. You can be amazing technically, but there is something just not in the picture.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
this is
I
what I
think,
learned, from Frank Zappa, basically.
Yeah, I mean those are all great things. I think none of us choose. I kind of subscribe to that adage that I'm sure you've heard that floats around, the music community, or the adage of like, we didn't pick us, but we didn't pick the instrument picked us. I completely subscribe to that.
Yeah.
I really think that you look at most instruments, and all of those instrumentalists are kind of wired the same. Bass players are typically wired the same, just their personality and all that. So I think like there's this kind of natural connection to an instrument that really, really does. Like if I'm going to say that the bass really lets me speak my voice, it's because there's properties in the bass's role within a group that really align with me. And there's just this natural connection to the instrument because of that.
Yeah.
So none of us pick doing this, and the people within the bass community that have really chosen to make it a profession, and what that means, because once it becomes a profession, it becomes something different. because now, things are hinging on it. You do have to practice every day because it is your job. And there's a relationship aspect there with the instrument. I think I was like, it's not a chore sometimes, but I don't actually. I do. I really like practicing.
Oh yeah.
But sometimes, like, I do have to force myself, walk over, get the bass out of the case. Like, all right, I just got to do this. And then once I'm out and I'm all set up, I'm like, cool, this is amazing, and it changed the whole tone of my day just because I got to spend time with the bass.
Yeah.
But there's like that little hump I have to get over, similar to like going to the gym or something. Like, just getting to the gym is the workout. Once I'm there, like, I'm glad I'm there. But actually getting there is the chore.
That's true.
But yeah, so I think there's trying to remember where I was going with that. Man, I'm doing a great job with all these tangents today. Let's just whatever. I don't know where I was going. Whatever.
The bass.
Yeah, I mean, we're into it. Like this, there's a quality in it that is completely captivating to us, and we have to do it. I don't know. It's not a decision. It's not a decision to choose the instrument, but within that, it's I think a decision of like who we want to be with the instrument, what this relationship is gonna, the relationship with the instrument. What's that? How is that gonna play out? So coming from the Zappa ideals, was this actually no? What I wanted to talk about is the journey of pushing the bass forward and getting that out there and kind of doing this whole renaissance in the bass and how has this challenged you as a person?
Do you
just
mean
the process of like not only musically, and maybe you have to, like we'll get to music and how that's progressed your musicianship, because anytime you're on that journey, like it's scary to step out and then you're like, oh, it's safe here on this step. All right, let me take another step. All right, that one isn't as bad as I thought. It's again the adage of like the next step is always the hardest, and then you take that step and you're like, okay, well, no, I guess I'm safe here too. Let's try another one.
Yeah.
And that's how the journey works. What's that been like for you as a person to really put yourself out there and to challenge an old guard of thinking as a woman within this culture?
It is tough, honestly, because you're like, you have to go through with just like confidence.
Even if you don't have it. That's what I've learned. Like, even if you don't have it, you just have to act like you have it and just do it.
Exactly. And you have to trust a lot, not either in yourself, in what you feel in the bottom of your stomach, Right. Because it's like when you're hungry, you need to feed yourself. You need to eat something. Yeah. And this is actually the same sensation I feel every day. And I'm really grateful to what I received every day, even if it's tough, because at least I'm walking towards what I like the most. So I don't think it's also a matter of, I don't know, a bit of luck, a bit of right moment and right time, a lot of things. So I'm grateful in this moment of my life. I have enough strength to go through all these things, no? But also you have to deal with people that are negative around you, or people that are trying to be your friends and they're not, or people that really totally go for your thing and they support you. So there is different aspect of things. Sure. And also being a woman, it's not the worst thing in terms of like judgment on my personal perspective, but you keep receiving some, like, I don't know, sexist comments from people sometimes, or like weird approach from people, if you know what I mean. Sure. A lot of time, or and you have to deal with these things, and a lot of people tell you, oh, if you might do this once, it could change your career or something like that, and you say, not really, I don't feel comfortable with that, so I'm going.
Sure.
Or they judge you as a woman just because you're young or stuff like that. And once a person told me, oh, you always will have attention in you because you play bass, that it's odd instrument, and you're a woman, you're kind of interesting. And I was like, no way, this is not how it works. I actually have a lot of struggle just because I'm a woman and I'm a bass player, you know.
Right.
And it's like I don't have to have attention because of this. I just want to just do my stuff because I'm a musician. I just produce music. I have content that can be good or not for people, but I try just like to understand, first of all, what I am and what is inside myself, you know,
Sure.
as a human being,
Right.
not as a woman or a bass player. So that's the really, I think, struggle. Just go out of the box for real, not just as a minority that's try to go out of the box. Just be out of the box. That's it. And yeah, I think this is the most difficult thing that I'm trying to not fight, just to get less severe every day.
Sure.
And yeah, this is the thing. And yeah, I'm not scared. It's just sometimes it's hard because it's like, why I'm not selling coconuts in, I don't know, in Hawaii Island. Sometimes there are days that you say, why I'm playing bass.
Yeah,
I'm
right,
here.
right, exactly.
But
no,
then,
I think we've all come to that
you
at some
know,
point. Like, why am I still doing this? I remember
yeah, and
I was playing this duo gig. This was years ago with a fantastic guitar player. And we used to like sit around on the breaks and talk about. He's a beautiful human and amazing instrumentalist. His name's Julian Coriel. His dad was a famous fusion guitar player.
okay.
But he's got his own identity as an artist and as a musician, and Julian's amazing.
Mhm.
Anyways, but we would sit around and we would talk about just like the humanity of being a musician, you know. And I remember right before that gig ended, Julian was in rehearsals with Alanis Morissette to do some, like, I don't know, 9-month world tour or something. And he'd leave the rehearsal with Alanis, and then he'd come play the duo gig, which is just like whatever, a little local neighborhood duo gig. And I remember asking him one time, like, dude, what are you doing? Like, why? You live on the other side of town. Like, why make it an even longer day? You know, you got kids and stuff. Like, go see your family, man. You know. He's like, dude, I have to do this. Like, I have to do this. I'm like, yeah, you're right, man. We all do, I guess. You know, like it's in us, no matter what the struggle is with it, or the kind of elements of defeat or roadblocks you run into. I think there's something within us all that we can't not. Like, it's so intertwined with us as people and a part of our story as humans that we can't not do this.
Yeah. I mean, like, human history is just a circle, you know. We just change the way we're doing things, but we actually keep doing the same things.
Well, yeah, there's that too. For good and bad, mostly bad.
Yeah.
Overall, there's a lot of bad repeats.
I know. Let's not start with that.
No, let's not. Let's go back to your record. Let's take a left turn. Let's circle back. So you come in. What is on the record? Is it repertoire that's like some older repertoire, some things you wrote? Talk about what the repertoire is.
Yeah, actually, I choose and this first record as an homage of my favorite composer, or what it was really life-changing for me. And of course, I put one of the Zappa piece in there, just because I explain you why just before.
Yeah.
And
no,
then
the groundwork for where you're coming from with this record has been. We've laid that groundwork. We're good.
I think I became a musician just because of Frank Zappa. Really, it's just
really.
Yeah. It was just life-changing.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I record my own sonata for bass, and then
Okay.
like a fantasy I wrote and Puccini Butterfly opera. That it was one of the most important piece of my background. I think Puccini in general, but the Butterfly, it's one of my.
And what's that connection? What's your connection to that piece?
It's actually true. I discovered the opera since I was young through my grandma, and it's actually also an homage to her, to my heritage, and like where I'm coming from. I was born in Tuscany, in the vicinity of Lucca actually, and I grew up in Lucca, and Lucca is the city of Giacomo Puccini.
Okay.
And I really just kind of, even if I left my hometown, I left my country, but I live in London now in the UK, but I still really feel culturally attached to my hometown, just because, I mean, I don't know, where you're coming from is in your blood, at least it's in your way of thinking sometimes, and you feel it when you're home. When I see the sea and the mountains, when I go back home, it's like I don't know, even if there are a lot of things that are not working at all in my country or in my city, I still just feel at home, in this way.
That's where you learned that's where you learned, those formative things in the world.
Yeah.
There's a deep connection to wherever your birthplace was in your early childhood home that you can't ever just sidestep. You can't get around that at all.
No.
That's just in you. It's part of your thing.
Yeah, it's like a bit of a relationship with everything you love and hate at the same time,
Right.
It's a bit odd, but it's what it is, and I think it's it was important for me to include one piece of this composer in the CD. And actually the only piece that I included, it was actually in the proper bass repertoire, Modernist Tabakov Motivi, that I recorded. It's this Bulgarian dance for solo bass.
Okay.
And it's the bonus track. Then everything is brand new repertoire that I described and I performed. Yeah.
Fantastic. What year was that? What year did you record that?
It was last year, actually, in April. We went to a Stanway studio in Graham in Lincolnshire, and we recorded for 3 days in there. Actually, it was for Easter time.
Okay.
And we finished the master in June, July, and then the records came out in October 2019, so it was quite recent. Yeah.
How did that feel? How did that feel to kind of like release all that into the world? And I've been asked before, like when I'm finally going to do a record, and I keep talking about it, and it's just, I have a ton of excuses why I don't. And then it just chimes into my own personal insecurities. I'm just like, man, give me like a couple more months. So like a couple more months to really be in the shed and work this out. But I do think, excuse me, I do think that records are Polaroid pictures of where anybody is at. And so I need to just do it. But then life gets in the way and stuff I got to do just for, work. Because doing records, there's a lot of work.
Yeah, it's just like a portrait of what you are in that specific moment. Actually, now I probably will record totally different because you change every month, you change every week. I mean, I don't know what you feel.
Right, exactly.
It's like, but I also have the thing is I'm not ready enough. I will just change my mind in the repertoire, and then you know what? No, it's just this is the time to do that. And
like I was just talking to a guitar player about that. He's like, dude, the only way to do it is like set it and like pay for it.
Yeah.
Like get the studio, pay for the studio, and then you're already invested. You have to get it together. Like, man, I think that's the move. Like,
and I think
hold yourself accountable.
Yeah, and also the studio experience really taught me a lot about how to practice and how to perform on stage, because it's so much different to record in a studio. You play literally. It's totally different perception. And the first day I was shocked. I was like, what is this? this is not performing. What is this? I was like, oh my God, no, I don't feel any kind of response from a audience, no, because it's so important when you're on the stage, you feel the reaction of the audience. But in
Sure.
there, it's like you playing with your colleague or colleagues, and but for no one, it's just like for a mic. So what is this? And then
Yeah.
I learned how to I don't know, fraction the pieces, and it really changed my way of even practice after the studio. I was like, when I came home from the studio after 2 days, I was completely different person.
What do you mean by fraction the pieces? I think I understand.
Yeah,
What does
actually,
that phrase mean? That's an interesting phrase.
actually take your time in the piece.
Okay.
I mean, like, don't get the kind of hurry sensation that you have on the stage. Oh my God, I have to play Arpeggione Sonata. It's 27 minutes of piece. Oh my God, can I just deal it? And then
Right.
when you're in studio, that you have your time in there and you say, okay, I have to record 27 minutes of piece.
Yeah.
I'll do it in section. I'll do one take, but it's just slowing, going on and going on.
Yeah.
And then you learn really to think not 27 minutes. You just think about the section of the piece.
Yes.
And it's actually when you watch a movie or something, no, it's not like, oh God, I have like 2.5 hours of movie. No, this is the
Right.
movie and what's going on in the movie. So this is what happens. Basically, it clicks in my mind after the studio recording. I really so clearly, as a performer, how I need to fraction the piece to don't freak out when I'm performing, actually. But and not that I was not doing that. I could analyze the piece, and of course I knew what is going on in the piece, but it's really a mental attitude. It's like when you run a marathon, I think. No, you don't
Sure.
think about the 42 kilometers you have to run. It's just bits by bits.
Yeah.
And this is what it clicks. Maybe it sounds very stupid, like, oh, Valentina, yeah, applause. This is a great discovery. But for me, it was, yeah, but for me, it was really okay, because I felt it on my skin for really the first time in front of
Sure.
a mic.
Sure.
And so
Yeah,
it
it
was
was
like,
the experience.
oh.
Like you had to experience that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, oh, nice.
Yeah. No, I remember sessions like that. You know, and it's an interesting thing, and it takes all the pressure off anytime you're in the studio. Just like, all right,
Yeah.
like there's no rush. You know, there's no. You have to play something from beginning to end. You get one take, nail it, and then you're done. Like, all that pressure is off. You know, you like take your time setting up. You get the sound you like. Get comfortable in the space. You know, maybe let your bass just kind of hang out in the room to adapt to whatever the temperature is. Like, you have all that time, and it's it's really luxurious when you can utilize that time and space instead of just like, all right, I got a session, get in, get out. It's like, no, we're in the studio, it's cool, take my time. There's no rush.
Totally. Yes.
Unless the producer is rushing you, then that's a different, you know,
that's a different
getting hired to record and like recording original content is too different. When you're hired, they just want you in and out as quick as possible because you're on the clock.
Oh, yeah. Fair enough.
That's a different thing. So how did this reflect, or how does your practice time reflect this kind of new discovery? Like, when you now approach a piece, whether it's something you've been working on or a new piece, how do you approach it differently?
It's like I allow myself to take my time more.
Okay.
Nobody's just pressing really. So I'm just maybe even quicker as before to learn piece, because I allow me to kind of relax in the learning process, you know.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it's a kind of more chill sensation, but more productive. Yeah. And it might sound like, oh, careless, but it's not. It's completely the opposite, actually, because you're aware on 360 degrees on what's going on, and you don't freak out. Oh, this passage is not coming out. I don't have time enough to practice. Then you take your time to practice that, and eventually you get it. So yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
like taking those they're hindrances. Ultimately, it's a hindrance of this
Mhm.
kind of, this thing we put on us, like, I got to get this done, got to get this done, got to get this done, got to get this done.
Yeah.
The world, like I do that for the Bass Shed website. I transcribe a lot. And so
Okay.
like I always have these things of, if I start a transcription or something, and a lot of those are that. There are a lot of times they're fragments, but like I'll do this course, I'll do 1 or 2 courses a day of a walking line or something
Okay.
for a jazz piece, but I got to take that off of myself and be like, the world is not going to change
No,
in
no,
any
exactly.
degree if I don't post a Scott LaFaro transcription tomorrow. Like, the world
Yeah.
is still going to be there. The world's going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. And actually, I'll probably be better in the world and just more relaxed with the
Yeah.
people that I interact with if I don't have the anxiety that I'm holding on to
Yeah,
about
exactly.
getting something done by an imaginary timeline.
Yeah. That's the thing. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Valentina, I know you got to get. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Oh no,
to
thank you
talk.
for this interview. It was such a honor to speak with you and tell you
My pleasure.
more about the thing.
Yeah. No, I love it. And there's your album's on Spotify. I'm sure it's on Apple Music as well.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, and then there's links. You have your website. I have a link up to your website.
Okay.
On the website, so they'll be able to go there, and you have everything on your website as well. Now I'm gonna publicly ask you this still in the interview. How do you pronounce your last name?
Which one of the two?
Which one do you go by? Right, you're right, because you have the one Hoffen, Solhoffen. Like, I can't pronounce either. So the question, the answer is both. I don't know how to pronounce either one.
Okay, so the German is Schellhofen.
Okay, slow that down.
That it's Scheldhofen. That it's actually like Flemish heritage, actually, because I discovered through my uncle that the family a long time ago came in Germany from the Flemish zone. So we are
zone. This is the Flemish zone.
The Flemish
sounds
zone.
like some action movies from the 80s. Like you got the danger zone from Top Gun, and you got the Flemish zone.
Yeah, the Flemish zone. So technically we are fake Germans, actually.
Okay.
And and the other one is Ciardelli. That is Italian, super Italian surname. That it's from Tuscany. Yeah.
So there's almost an H sound in there. Ciardelli?
Ciardelli.
Yeah, I can't roll my R's, which kind of sucks because both of my initials are R's. And it would be awesome if I could roll my R's, but I can't. Yeah, I can't. Even though, like, my mom's Italian, you'd think I would have been able to pick this up at some point.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah. Like, she's from New York. Like, she doesn't speak Italian. I don't know if my grandparents on that side spoke Italian. I remember asking my mom at one point if they did. I can't remember the answer. I also asked my mom when I was like 7 if they had mob ties. I'm thinking they're like, New York Italians. Like, there might be some mob connects. I don't know. But so I can't roll my R's, but Ciardelli. Like, imagine I just rolled my R's.
Yeah, it's fine. It sounds super.
That's the super
good,
white way to say it, but okay.
I mean, I'm used to it because I live in England, so they all say Ciardelli with their
Right. Cool. Well, thank you so much, and I will let you get on to wherever you're going next. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you. See you. Bye.
All right, bye.
All right, that was my talk with Valentina. I see what I did there. I'm still dodging the last name. Like, I don't know. I don't want to butcher it. If for those of you that have listened to multiple episodes of the Bass Shed podcast here, and when they have really complex names, I always butcher them. Always. Podcast 1, Nadav butchered the last name. Man, that just set the whole tone for what I would continue to do for all of it. Apparently, is just not be able to get people's names. Yikes. That's sad. I like what she was talking about at the end there about practicing in fragments and fragmenting it, and just kind of relieving the pressure, right? Just kind of taking a minute, relaxing, approaching it in a relaxed state, and releasing the burden of this. I got to get it done. Got to get it done. Like this kind of hustle mentality or all this anxiety that's associated with it. I like that a lot. That's a good one. And took me some time to really come to also. I didn't necessarily learn it through the recording process, but I did. I have learned it, and it just to approach things patiently, in time, because I get sucked in deep, and then I just have to get it done. To whatever the project is. Anyways, folks, that's what's going on. Again, stop by thebasshed.com. Sign up for the newsletter. You can also text the word shed to 66866, and that will sign you up. And there's an email that will be sent to you with letting you know what's going on. I think right now it's talking about this podcast episode. And also there's a James Jamerson transcription in it right now. That's going out for free. And I'm going to switch up those transcriptions weekly. And so that one won't be around too much longer. I don't know what day I'm going to sub them out. Probably Wednesday, right? The podcast comes out on Wednesday. At least I aim to. Right now I've been doing every other week because I'm spending the off weeks just transcribing a ton. So I'll be switching it up next time. Maybe next week or next time the podcast comes out. Who knows? I'm completely rambling. That's my story, folks. That's her story. I'm sticking to both. And I'll catch you on the next one.